The app's perfect. I just wish we could prevent these issues from happening in the first place instead of just documenting them in the inspection after. And so that kind of kicked off a series of, thought process on, all right, how can we actually prevent these issues and rework and delays instead of just documenting them at the inspection? And that's what led us to our current product, which is basically an AI plan checker.
Because of that mistake, so contractor paid $2 million for the rework. And the project was also delayed for a few months, right? But then when they came to us and we run our checker against this past project, we actually catch exactly that issue. So imagine if they would run this before the construction, it would have avoided like $2 million in a few months of the project delay.
The biggest thing keeping them up at night is my project is a month late because my architectural and structural are off by 2 inches, right? Not like, hey, I need a chatbot to ask it for, what the plumbing size is, right? Like that sounds cool. It's like selling AI. That's not solving the problem. Catching all this it's not really humanly possible, which is why even you have the best architects and engineers working on projects, but you have all these conflicts and issues during construction, despite the best project teams. It's just not humanly possible. So it's perfect case for AI to come in and help solve that problem. We take you to the page of the drawing, to the page of the spec, to the page of the building code and show you this was the conflict. So instead of just, hey, just trust the AI, we're showing you like, well, this is what your spec says, this is what your drawing says, this is what the code says, and you can verify yourself.
He was so excited. He's like, oh, this used to take me like a week to write. Now it just InspectMind just like save me a week's of time of writing the report. It's just like so boring. I can spend more time with my family.
I think every project should be checked by AI. If you have a way to catch all these issues instead of costing, 10x, 100x more down the road, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Welcome back to Constructive, everybody. Special part 2 episode with InspectMind here. Why don't the two of you go ahead and just introduce yourself first, Aakash?
Sure. Hey, I'm Aakash. I'm the co-founder, CEO of InspectMind. So I've been, you could say I'm third generation in the construction industry. Like my dad's a structural engineer. His dad was a civil engineer. But then I went ahead, studied computer science and wanted to kind of build something at this intersection of AI and construction and kind of set out to, find what is the big, interesting problem we could solve here.
Shuangling.
So I'm the co-founder and CTO of InspectMind.ai. My name is Shuangling. My background is from the software side. Before this, I was an engineer at big tech company, Google, Airbnb for a few years. But my passion is building something myself, and I want to use AI to help people. And I know construction is a very big industry, $1 trillion industry, but it's super underserved. So I'm like super excited to work on this.
Yeah, we were just talking. I had Aakash on probably over a year ago now. And back then we were focused on the inspection side of things. It feels like you've moved upstream a little bit. And instead of just dealing with problems that have already happened, you're trying to prevent them. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it actually happened very naturally and organically. We started with an app for inspections. We still have that app and, we have a bunch of customers using that. And it was actually this summer, we were out at a job site with one of our inspection app customers. And we're inspecting like a huge solar farm in Long Island, New York. And, I was like I flew all the way to New York and I was asking him, okay, how can we make this app better? Like, what more can we do for you? And kind of the aha moment was the app's perfect. I just wish we could prevent these issues from happening in the first place instead of just documenting them in the inspection after. And so that kind of kicked off a series of, thought process on, all right, how can we actually prevent these issues and rework and delays instead of just documenting them at the inspection? And that's what led us to our current product, which is basically an AI plan checker.
I think I saw that you mentioned AI can now cross-reference disciplines like MEP drawings and architectural plans, and it seems like a big leap. Like, how hard was it to build an agent that thinks, almost in 3D across a bunch of PDF pages? I'm sure that was a huge challenge. Either of you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, it was not easy to build. Basically, we need AI to understand the drawings, the context, right? And the most difficult part is to understand the relationships between the drawings. For example, the architectural A1 is it related to A2 or A3 or S1 or S3? like which sheets are together. So what we've built is that we do extensive processing to understand like the topics each sheet like talks about, and also we basically create these clusters of sheets. For example, this is a cluster of sheets talking about topic one, the door or the window. This cluster is about grading, for example. So that's like the core algorithm.
Yeah, we've given a little preview of what you're into now. Let's take a step back and start from those inspections. Like, talk about some of the things you guys learned initially with just dealing with inspection reports that maybe did lead into this side of it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, just it was in the process of like, and it's literally an inspection at a job site where this idea came. And it was really what opened our eyes was seeing the kinds of mistakes that actually happen on pretty much every project. And some of these can be $1 million mistakes, like they installed the 6-inch slab instead of 8-inch slab, and now it's a $3 million change order. Like, these are like real stories from like actual projects like our customers have done. And so what we saw from that was like around 10% of construction costs go into rework and mistakes and change orders and things like that. And half of them are the designs were correct, the documents were correct, but they built it wrong. And there might be something we could do there later in terms of tying the field data to the drawings and trying to early detect if something is going off track or not following the plan. Like, I think in long run that would be really interesting, of like tying the field data to the drawings and kind of catching issues as they're made or before they're made. But the other half is just mistakes in the drawings. So like, take that Long Island job. We saw examples in the drawings where, in 7 places, it says one number, but in the 8th place, it says another number. And if the contractor builds the wrong one, well, now they have to tear it out, redo it. What would have been $500 the first time is now $20,000 to redo it, tear it out, bring back the equipment, the labor, the materials, order parts, lead time for that. And so I think it was just eye-opening, the kinds of actual issues that happen, and just how simple they seem once you catch them, but how much scope there is for many of these issues to just add up across a drawing set.
And I bet like doing that inspection reporting stuff and the data you've gathered in that process is helping to inform this more like predictive run your drawings through this AI agent. Like, doesn't that data that you get from inspections help you figure out how to prevent it? Can you flesh that
It
out for
helps us
me?
understand what are common mistakes that are made so we can make sure that our checker is checking those things. So definitely having an understanding of the most common field issues and things like that, it can help inform our checker. So it's checking for the right kinds of things to avoid like the consequential mistakes. So that's how it ties in right now.
Yeah. Do you want to walk us through like the products? Like, I'd love for just kind of a walkthrough of like what you can get from InspectMind. Is that an easy thing for you to do?
Sure. Let me pull up a screen share here, and I can actually pull up an example. It's pretty interesting, like kinds of issues we can find. So just give me a 1 sec here to pull up the screen share.
So this is one of the first projects we checked. And you can see this is like the list of issues found by AI. And go into, let's say, this example. Here, AI analyzed what the issue is based on the documents provided by the user. So here is the materials mismatch. One drawing calls for PVC membrane boot, and the spec requires TPO roofing system.
Maybe just walk me through while we're waiting for things to load. You can just like upload a set of drawings, and then is there a lot that you need to input beyond that, or does it start working as soon as you upload?
Really easy. Basically, you really just need to upload the PDF and that's it. So let's say I create a project and I can upload my files, and that's it. So you just upload your PDF. Most customers just upload like one PDF, which is the complete drawing set. Some customers also upload like their specification PDF, 1 to 2 files, and then our AI can just like running all the checks in the background, including the consistencies within the drawings. So there are a few different types, right? Like the first is within each discipline, let's say within like architecture drawings, are there any inconsistencies? And then cross-discipline, are there any inconsistency between architecture versus civil versus structural? And then cross-check the drawings against the building code. Usually it's like international building code, California building code, where I just run through every drawing against the building code. So for like, usually for 100 pages drawing sheet, on average, we have maybe 70 issues, legit issues found.
Talk about how this is saving time and money for people.
Yeah, well, both time and money. So, in terms of time, I mean, it's just manual review of these documents, especially when you think about a complex project with hundreds or thousands of sheets of drawings and specifications. You have, 5, 10 different codes that apply to the project. Checking all of that, it's not really feasible, right? I mean, you have all these different consultants working on different parts of it. And even when they use BIM does one type of clash detection, but BIM doesn't point out that your specs and details don't align. BIM doesn't check the building codes. That's just more of the most basic clash detection of like, okay, you're not running a pipe through a wall kind of stuff, right? And so I think this is really taking the promise of BIM to a very different level than just the very basic 3D clash detection. Like it's really catching a lot more issues than just that and type of issues. So the time savings piece, I think, is the one piece, but it's not the most valuable piece. There's it's the review time of going through so much information. Take architects, engineers, project managers a lot of time to just go through such an enormous amount of data. It's basically impossible just to catch like, hey, page 496 of this file and detail number 251 of this drawing and this like code reference and this paragraph of page 1200. Catching all this it's not really humanly possible, which is why even you have the best architects and engineers working on projects, but you have all these conflicts and issues during construction, despite the best project teams. It's just not humanly possible. So it's perfect case for AI to come in and help solve that problem. Then I would say the bigger time savings is having fewer RFIs and conflicts during construction, because you're in the middle of construction and you find out that there's a conflict between like one place it says 12-inch footing depth and other place it says 18-inch footing depth. Well, you want that clarified before you pour, right? If you do it after the pour, you have to change it, becomes very expensive. And those kinds of mistakes just add up over the course of projects. So the real time savings is in all those, days and weeks saved from having to do rework or critical path, waiting for a clarification or RFI response, when you can squash those, early on. And then the real cost savings is you avoid one change order, it pays for itself, or you avoid one rework. On projects, we're finding like 70 issues, 120 issues, 220 issues, right? Like there's cases there where like one mistake pays for the whole thing. Like there was a project we just checked, the medical building, where like for the storefront profile depth, the details showed 6.5-inch depth and the specs required 4.5-inch. Like an issue like that, imagine catching it after, right? But it happens on every project, and that's where you get all these like big change orders, or you get contractor takes a hit. So we heard a lot of these horror stories from like real projects, and that's where we were like, hey, if we could solve this problem, it's probably the biggest value we could create in terms of like actually being useful with AI for our customers.
Right. And another horror story we heard, we ran our checker on like some cold storage project. And there's basically some issues in the materials used in the door for this project. And because of that mistake, so basically the contractor paid $2 million for the rework. And the project was also delayed for a few months, right? But then when they came to us and we run our checker against this past project, we actually catch exactly that issue. So imagine if they would run this before the construction, it would have avoided like $2 million and a few months of the project delay.
In fact,
it seems like
went back and updated their global spec after seeing the results, so that they have, to improve the spec for future projects. And they're going to use us in all their future developments going forward. There's just, I think every project should be checked by AI. If you have a way to catch all these issues instead of costing, 10x, 100x more down the road, it's kind of a no-brainer.
And this feels like a case where Yes, the big thing that everybody's concerned about with AI is it being inaccurate or hallucinations and stuff like that. But I just imagine like this is a great place, like run it through and it's your best first pass. It's going to catch probably more than you would have if you had spent weeks or something in some cases right away. And yes, maybe it'll catch too many issues or not quite enough, but it's like a great first pass, right? Do you find that this is preempting that whole like pushback about no, AI can't do what humans do, it's inaccurate, it's hallucinating? Like, what do you say when people bring those things up?
So we haven't been seeing that a whole lot on the QA use case. And the reason being that if you remember from the demo we just showed, we show you the issue, we explain the issue, we even suggest the RFI. And most importantly, we take you to the page of the drawing, to the page of the spec, to the page of the building code and show you this was the conflict. So instead of just, hey, just trust the AI, we're showing you like, well, this is what your spec says, this is what your drawing says, this is what the code says, and you can verify yourself, right?
Mhm.
And so by kind of giving you the evidence, you're not just blindly saying, hey, AI said this is an issue. You can actually verify it yourself. So it becomes a really useful tool. It's a little bit like, Perplexity. One of the claim to fame for Perplexity was they didn't just give you the answer, but they showed you the citations and the sources. And we think for this use case, that's very natural. We show you exactly where we found the explain why it's a conflict, what is the consequence, what is the RFI, the analysis, and so that really helps build that trust because it's not just like, hey, ChatGPT told me there's this issue. It's like, here's all the information backing it up. And, you can do whatever you want with that information, if this is something you want to fix or not fix, or maybe this one's not a big deal, but at least we get all the evidence in front of you.
Right.
Yeah,
I
and
will also
go
add that
ahead, Sean.
besides that, it's super easy to verify the issue. We also collect the feedback from users. So whenever you review the issue, you can give it like thumbs up or thumbs down, and you can add comments. And because there is a feedback loop from the customers, from the users, with every like new feedback, we improve our AI. So it's only gonna get like more and more accurate over
How
time.
much of it is AI? I mean, I've talked to you, Akash, about AI before. I know you have the right approach to it where it's like you're not just throwing AI as a fix all to everything. So I imagine you came to this solution and didn't just say like let's just create a chatbot or whatever. Like, is it a mix? Is it a hybrid?
This one is actually very extensively using AI. It's actually
Yeah.
does a lot of computation because you're taking so much data and you're comparing and cross checking against each other. There's actually a pretty heavy amount of computation that this is doing. So I would say, but in terms of your point, we didn't get to this by saying like, hey, what's a cool AI we could build? Like we got to this by like, what is the hair on fire problem? Like what is our customer's biggest problem? What's keeping them up at night? And the biggest thing keeping them up at night is my project is a month late because my architectural and structural are off by 2 inches, right? Like that's keeping people up at night, not like, hey, I need a chatbot to ask it for, what the plumbing size is, right? Like that sounds
Mm,
cool, but it's like selling AI. That's not solving a problem. What we're doing is we're solving a problem of like this thing can catch that your architectural and structural drawings are off by 2 inches. So you don't have a $3 million change order halfway into your project, right?
mm.
And so we start with like, what is the problem to solve? We understood that problem. We spent time meeting customers. Like actually, Shuangling and I flew to dozens of job sites all over the country this summer, from like Atlanta to New York to Dallas to Oregon, Seattle, all over the country. And so
No
literally
wonder we
every
haven't
week we
gotten
were
to hang
flying.
out much. You've been so busy all over the place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I remember we had lunch and I was telling you about the job site probably I was going to that day.
Yeah.
But we did a lot of that and we understood what is the problem. Where do these errors come from? And then we're using kind of heavily using AI to solve that problem, right? In the sense that like AI is understanding these diagrams, these details, these designs, drawing code specifications, clustering them, checking for inconsistencies and mistakes, reasoning, all of that. So it is a heavy use case of AI, but not from the standpoint of let's sell AI, but from the standpoint of like let's solve real problems.
Yeah, don't you think that's so important to get out on a construction site?
Yeah, the
Yeah, yeah.
construction side is so different than what what I imagine, right? Like, because I'm not coming from a construction background, and I remember, first time when I went to the job site, I didn't even know what is PPE. I bought like those helmets and the boots. And, I was like walking in the mud and talking to the superintendent. I was like teaching him how to use InspectMind to take videos, what we should say to the app, like how this all works. It was like extremely eye-opening for me, and that I build a connection with the customers that way. And also, like what Akash said, that is how we understand what our users care about. It's not as just like inventing some cool new tech in the office. It is like construction is a physical industry. You have to go out there and like, talk to people on the job site. Otherwise, we wouldn't understand what they care about.
My
One of the
advice
whole,
is,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, make sure when you guys go out to the construction site, my little trick tip is get your stuff all dirty and like make it look really used. Cause I used to get made fun of a lot when my hard hat was too white or my boots were too clean. But go ahead.
No, the best part was we'd spend like the whole day with a contractor or engineer, and just seeing like what's on their mind, like it wasn't even like, oh, here's the right questions to ask. It's more just like if you just go spend a day with a contractor and just naturally start hearing like what's on their mind, and they start telling you about all the things that went wrong on projects and horror stories, and now it's like, well, clearly that's the problem to solve. Like, how can we solve that problem? And I think that was really kind of our evolution and discovery process in building this plan checker.
I bet you also get like those boots on the ground that you'd expect to be have adverse feelings about technology at times. I bet you go there, you talk to them, you listen a lot, I bet, and then you start to actually try to solve some of their problems to make those guys in the fields jobs easier. I bet they warm up to it fast. Did you get a lot of that?
Yeah, initially, when we like going in, talking about AI, they just didn't understand, why is it relevant? Why does it matter to them? Like, what is this AI stuff? It was very theoretical, but it's really once you understand, okay, this is the actual problem, and like forget about the AI. It's just like that's just a means to an end. It's just a tool. Ultimately, it's about, hey, we've got a way to solve this problem. So in your next project, you don't have this $2 million change order, right? And once you have that and you can show that works, that's when it's no longer like, who are these like AI people? And it's more like, this is really interesting. Like if this thing has a shot at solving the problem that cost me, $3 million on this $90 million job. It's like, okay, I'm all yours.
Yeah. Do you see owners taking or hearing hints of this and wanting it, like seeing the value of it? Are they aware of it? Do you have like this feels like a middle approach. Like I think of tech, like you can go bottom up or top down. I'm kind of focused on the owner level, like what technology can we build for owners to make them more capable? I feel like this could be a part of it one day, but it might be like educating owners like, hey, this is saving the construction process a lot of money, and they might want to dictate like we need to have this in our spec or something. Is that happening?
Yeah, we've seen cases where the owner or developer uses this and then they go send the results to their project team, like architect and engineers, and then, hey, we
Right.
need to fix issues, right? Because at the end of the day, the owner is feeling the pain, right? When you have these kinds of mistakes, like, things were off by several inches or wrong materials installed, and I mean, somebody's paying for that change order. Somebody's paying for that delay. Somebody's paying for this building opening 6 months later than they had planned, right? And the lost revenue and all of that, right? And so ultimately, it is the owner. And like, regardless of like contracts and stuff, like the money's, the owner ultimately is paying for the project. And so they're taking the biggest hit. Even if the contractor absorbed the liability, even if they absorbed the change order, there's still a delay on the project of weeks and months from having to go back and do rework and fix stuff. So, I mean, we're seeing motivation from, different parties. You have the owners and developers, you have the contractors, right? Because for the contractors, this becomes a way to protect their margin. And then also from architects and engineers, because now they don't want to, their sets going out, and now the contractor is using AI and catching all these issues. Now they're looking bad. Why do your specs have 500 typos, right? And so, because a lot of times the way a lot of these projects are done, they're copy pasted from previous projects. I mean, I just saw a project today where it's a project in 2025, and the text in the drawings referencing a 2015 building code instead, two code cycles ago, right? So things like that happen in practice because a lot of times the specs are copy pasted from a previous job or the details. But this becomes a way for the architects and engineers to also QA their own work and, have fewer RFIs and comments and everything down the road.
Yeah, a big buzzword this past year, I feel like, has been AI agents, and everybody's been building agents. Like, you feel like are you calling this an agent? It feels
This
agentic.
this is an agent, and I also initially, really felt, hey, that's just one of these buzzwords these days people are using for marketing. But the way I think about it, what the difference is, like if you just think about like a chat bot, okay, that's like you go and query stuff or ask questions, and like there's companies doing that. I just don't think that's the hair on fire problem, to be honest. Especially if the chatbot's not correct in the first place and you have to verify it anyways. What the agent allows to do is it kind of does these tasks in the right sequence on your behalf. And so that's why we call it an agent, because it is performing that plan check workflow on your behalf. It's taking, one step after another, checking all hundreds and thousands of different things. That's the reason we call it an agent, because it's actually doing this workflow versus just being like a chatbot.
It is an agentic workflow. It knows first step, I analyze all these documents. Second step, I check each sheet. Each sheet, I know like which are the other sheets to refer to, and here are the type of issues I should check. It is like a complicated workflow, and it is agentic. That's why we call it AI agent. And also our roadmap. Right now, we don't have this, but we would have like a chat as well in our tool in the future, because that way the users can also interact with our agent. For example, the most common issues we see for our projects is, for example, dimensions mismatch between architectural and structural. Can you focus on that? So that way we can like get even more accurate context from the users.
Are you guys growing fast, and how are you building that team? Are you finding too, as an AI company, you don't need to hire a bunch of people? I'm curious.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
I can definitely like say a lot about this, because before this startup, I was engineer for like 7 years in big tech companies. And I wrote every line of my code manually. Now I have Cursor and I like speak English. I say, hey, implement this feature. Help me add some filters on this homepage so I can filter the projects by the owner, for example. You just like type, hit enter, and you wait for 5 minutes. You come back, the feature is there. But I would say like the benefits of me as a more experienced engineer of using Cursor versus like maybe less experienced software engineer is that I'm able to do the security check much better. I know like, okay, I'm not just blindly trusting what AI is doing. I would make sure it's actually functional. I will make sure that the access control is in good place. Like the user's data is never leaked to other users. So those things. But I would say like my productivity has like easily 5x after adopting this AI tools. Like I think before every day, average engineer can like write 1,000 or 2,000 lines of code. Now every day I can write like 10 to 30,000 lines of code. Not
So
saying like more
Akash,
code is
yeah, do you enjoy having 5 of Shuangling?
Yeah, no, and in terms of, the company building, right? That's where it just, I think there was this kind of old way of doing things even like 3 years ago and before, which was like, okay, you've got a product, you've got some traction now, like you have to go to investors and raise a ton of money, then you got to go hire 100 people, or like, and then you've got this whole army of people to manage, and then you're spending all your time managing them instead of building your product. Right. And then that was the old way of doing things. And just we're increasingly seeing now with the kind of leverage AI's bringing, you actually don't need massive teams anymore. Small teams can actually build great products and get really far. Like the product that Shanling mentioned, which is Cursor, it's like an AI coding agent. Last I checked, they had 30 employees and like they're worth like $30 billion. Like they're doing like probably nearing $1 billion a year of revenue or something like that. And so it just like AI provides great leverage where you could have a very small but high quality team kind of using AI to the max and really out executing, companies where they took the approach of just, they hired 100 people and now they're spending all their time, like a CEO and CTO are just spending all their time doing one-on-ones. They don't have any time to meet customers or build great products.
Right. And you have an engineering company too, Akash. Like, is there synergy with InspectMind and our? I would love to hear a brief about what it looks like there as well.
Yeah, no, there definitely is. I mean, that's how, we've seen firsthand what kind of issues are there in the industry. We've got, projects to look at. I mean, definitely that was another data point in terms of, hey, one of the problems in architecture and engineering is how do you standardize and deliver quality at scale? How do you, it's one thing when you're just doing like one project at a time or one or two projects a month, you can spend all the time in the world. But if you're doing like, engineering 100 buildings a month, how do you ensure and scale quality and standardize quality? And so this, that was another kind of data point that validated this idea.
Do you guys think like another big pushback I started to think about is like saving time for people and not needing to hire more people? I guess the pushback is, well, I just think if AI saves a bunch of time, then what are people going to do with that time? In my mind, it's a perfect thing. It's like focus on what really matters. And we're eliminating tasks that I think people don't want to do anymore. But do you hear that a lot too? Like, oh, all the jobs are going to go away now. What do you say?
Not for our use case. I think that I've come across other startups that are trying to do like, they're building like an AI architect or an AI engineer, and like they're actually trying to generate the designs. And well, the problem there is if the design isn't correct, it's kind of no good. And so that's the issue they're running into. But because over there, the design you generate has to be perfect. It has to be code compliant and everything. And then if it isn't, it's you kind of having to do the whole thing yourself anyways. I think that's where, they're not quite succeeding right now. But so I think if we were doing like an AI architect or an AI engineer, I could totally understand that kind of objection. But since we're doing more of AI QA, people are seeing us as a friend, not as a threat or as an enemy. Like they're seeing us as a friend, like, hey, this is helping me improve my quality of work, right? It's not like, because they're checking their own work anyways. This is an extra check, and it's less about the time savings. It's because they're going to check their own work anyways. But it's more of helping them improve quality. So it's much more with since we're leading with a quality improvement value prop as opposed to like a time saving value prop, when you have a product that's more focused on a time saving value prop, that's where people go, well, if you're saving me time, then I have less work to do. Then, what am I going to do? Right. But in this case, like, I mean, you're still going to be engineering the building and designing it and building it. This is just helping you improve the quality of what you're doing.
What else, Shuangling? I feel like I haven't asked you enough questions. What's the latest thing you've been working on that's exciting? Yeah, or whatever.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking I could like talk also about the company culture. So
Please.
I would say one thing like that's we talk about is what's our motivation of building this company, right? Like obviously, I also want to make lots of money from this company. It's like cool to build a product that millions of people use. But at the end of the day, when I ask myself, okay, what makes me the most excited and motivated to work on this is always the feedback from the real users. So I remember like even before we pivoted to this idea when we work on the field reports, our first customer is called San Diego. I remember like, okay, it took me like, I actually flew to LA to meet him on the job site the next day. He was going to do like a balcony inspection, and he was like really our first paying customers, right? I'm like, I can't mess this up. I have to like make sure this works for him. And then it was a Monday and I arrived like Sunday afternoon. I'm like, shit, it's not even ready. Like, what can I do? And I remember like staying out until after midnight and but get that part ready. And the next day when I met him on the job site and it was working. And he was like, oh, wow, this is like really useful. And then a few days later, when we actually generate that balcony, he was so excited. He's like, oh, this used to take me like a week to write. Now InspectMind just like save me a weeks of time of writing the report. It's just like so boring. I can like, spend more time with my family. And he would like text me as well, right? We have each other's phone numbers. He texts and call me every time he has any issues. And he would like, tell me you're the best. Right? He was like, this is like so helpful. Output is excellent. So I think that is what's driving me to work hard and build a great product, because I know it actually is helpful. It's not just like, oh, I'm like making so much money, I'm like the best, but it's actually providing a real value. And not just for me, I feel like that was also the strongest motivation for our other engineers. It is when they fly to visit our customers on the job site and talk to them and build the connections and know that, okay, my work is meaningful. It's not just like, looking cool. But yeah, I think in terms of building culture, company culture, that is what everyone on the team agrees. It is about to create value and build something actually useful. Like, yes, using the latest AI, but the ultimate goal is to make it actually useful. Otherwise, it doesn't matter.
That's beautiful. And I totally agree. I feel like fulfillment for me does not come from checks in the bank. It comes from helping people. That's why I called the podcast constructive. I just want to be helpful because that's literally the most joy I can get out of work is when someone's like, wow, I'm so grateful to have you on my team or with me. And that's what I strive for too. I see that in your team and really appreciate having people like I did have one other question I thought of just like in terms of, I bet this can apply to any sector of the construction industry, but I wonder if there are kind of like narrower niches within construction that this makes a ton of sense for. Like, I don't know if repeatable work like data centers, I know that's a big thing right now, but is there sectors of the industry that tend to gravitate towards it? And I'm sure you're going to open it up and want every sector, but which one which kinds of projects work best with your system?
Yeah, it's a great question. Right now, we're seeing a variety of projects, but there is one kind of more narrow segment that I think is standing out. But I mean, we're seeing everything from houses to high rises and senior living and apartments and mixed use and schools and hospitals and TIs and everything. But one pattern that I have kind of early pattern that I'm seeing is when you have kind of projects where there is kind of like a global spec. For example, let's say there's a franchise, they're building that same school, in 100 different locations around the country. And there's, every site is different. Every project might be a little bit different, but there's like a kind of centralized spec that it has to follow, right? It's the same thing with like the example we gave earlier of like cold storage, right? There's like a global spec it has to follow. So that's a great use case because you obviously have the cross discipline, you have the building codes and all of that, but for those projects, making sure you meet the spec doc is even extra important because it may be a national company that wants that standardization and things like that. So that's definitely been one kind of use case, but really we're seeing everything. Like in one day, we might see an ADU and we might see a high rise and just like everything in the middle. Like, and obviously the more complex the project, the more sheets there are, the more disciplines there are, the more building codes apply, the longer the spec, the more valuable this becomes because it's just like exponentially more things to check. And so it just, the value really grows quickly because of that.
That's kind of cool that when your product is stronger, the more complicated the project gets, right? That's kind of a nice dichotomy.
Yeah, it becomes more valuable. The more complex it is, the more valuable it becomes because the harder it is to, catch these issues when you're dealing with, 5,000 sheets versus 15 sheets.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to direct anybody somewhere in particular to get started connecting with you guys?
Yeah. Well, if they just go to our website, which is www.InspectMind.ai, we have a page where they can just upload the project. They can get a quote. They can just put in a little bit of information about, hey, here's the project I want to check. They can upload the drawings and then, it'll be this much to check it. If they want to move forward, then the checker will run and we'll have, here's the 300 issues we found on your project. You click into it, see what the issues are. They're prioritized. And so I would just direct them to our website and they can submit a project to check. So usually the way people get started with us is they do like a first project, like just on a kind of a one-off project basis. Hey, I've got this like tenant improvement we're doing. They're curious to try this out. And you might give them like a flat fee to check that project. And then they see, okay, what's kind of the signal to noise? Like what's the quality of results? What's the interface like how easy it is, how fast it is, etc. And then we understand, okay, how many jobs a year, what's their volume? Do they want to use this on every project? So we've already had companies where they were really happy with the results on the first project. Like we found like the internal issues, but and conflicts and discrepancies, but also like building code issues. They're like, okay, I just want to make this like a standard for every job we do, like just part of the process for every job we produce in our company. And then we, worked out a subscription with them where they can use this on, just every time they have a project, just go to we have a dashboard portal. They can just upload their project and get it checked. And then it just becomes like a standard operating procedure for every job that they do. Then like we've already seen cases where people want to run it on like a 30% set, a 50% set, a 70% set, and kind of run it early and over the course of the project, because eventually we want to become like more of a continuous QA platform, even through different stages, your DD, SD, kind of the whole progress sets and everything, all the way, even, tying it back to that inspection app field data. Imagine you're getting your daily reports and like you've got the photo of like this door and it's like, wait, that doesn't look like the detail we had in the drawing, right? And so even catching those issues down the road. So it can really become like a continuous QA over time, like not just the drawings, but and not just like the permit set, but literally like every stage, every milestone. But yeah, I would just direct people to the website.
Thanks, everybody. Connect with Aakash and Shuangling on LinkedIn and go to InspectMind.ai, and we'll talk to you soon.